Hello there, gamerinos and gamerinas, welcome to UnicornStorm, this is Rady, and today I'm going to tell you my thoughts about the Fire Emblem Three Houses trial version. It's another musou spin-off of Fire Emblem, but this time it's not a wacky cross-dimension Allstar meetup plot, but a kind of alternate take on the last big Fire Emblem game, Three Houses. I enjoyed the game, even though I had some major problems with how it presented its story. But that's not what we are going to focus on here, yet. In this game, we get to play as a mercenary who runs into the heirs of the previous game's titular Three Houses, which makes them this game's titular Three Hopes, I guess. Dimitri, Edelgard and Claude. And this run-in prevents those three from meeting Byleth from the previous game. In fact, Byleth is the antagonist to our player character. This will most assuredly change over the course of the story, but for now this is a neat setup. And since the story of Three Houses is already quite unsure of its own canon, I can take this game as yet another alternate reality in the grand multi-canon of Fire Emblem Three Houses. In fact, this game copied its predecessor's way of storytelling and tells us three different stories depending on who we align ourselves with at the beginning of the game. And let me just be frank for a moment about Omega Force and the Dynasty Warriors franchise and all its in-house clones. I'm not really a fan of Dynasty Warriors, I have never really been interested in it. I played it at a friend's house once or twice, but more for my friend's amusement than because I really wanted to. I played some copycats like 99 Nights or Bladestorm, which reminded me more of Kingdom Under Fire Heroes, but I guess that would count as well. And I quite liked those. I also played a bunch of Omega Force's own musou spin-offs to all kinds of franchises. Hyrule Warriors, Pirate Warriors, Dragon Quest Heroes, Arslan, Attack on Titan, Persona 5 Strikers. God damn it, that's a lot. You know, I have a new rule for the internet. Rule 49. If a franchise exists, it will get a musou spin-off. And I really have to applaud Omega Force to how they handled these spin-offs. A lot of them are pretty basic, don't divert too much from the Dynasty Warriors mold, but interpret the different franchises' mechanics in the Dynasty Warriors gameplay. But then there are games that shake up the formula to a huge extent, the most daring one being Attack on Titan, which changed nearly every mechanic, but still had that Dynasty Warriors feel. The first Hyrule Warriors added item puzzles, the second one focused on a tight story similar to Dragon Quest Heroes, but not as much as Persona 5 Strikers, which could have just been an actual Persona game. The first Fire Emblem Warriors featured permadeath and the weapon triangle, so it added another, or maybe just a, layer of strategy to the quite monotonous hack and slash gameplay. And now there is Fire Emblem Three Houses, which followed Three Houses, a game where you joined a military academy as a kind of homeroom teacher for one of three factions and, depending on that, experience one of four different stories. Where half of the game, at least one playthrough, consists of trying to befriend and recruit a whole bunch of colorful characters before they join the enemy faction after the halfway point. Where you had a huge amount of customization for your units and even a bit for your home base. And this game follows up by implementing pretty much all of it. At its core, this game features the same old Dynasty Warriors gameplay. Every mission requires you to capture enemy fortresses and kill the enemy's general, all while murdering hundreds of their soldiers. Often you will have to complete multiple tasks like defeating special enemies, escorting important NPCs and so on. And it's fine, if sometimes a bit mindless. Though, they tried to give the combat a bit more depth, in addition to the Fire Emblem stuff they already added with the last one. But to reiterate, in Fire Emblem Warriors, different weapon types influence each other, with swords having the advantage over axes, axes over lances, and lances over swords. There's also ranged combat and magic, which comes mostly into play with certain armor types or mounts. So you have to be careful when deploying units and when giving orders. You shouldn't send in a wyvern-mounted axe wielder into a group of archers and sword fighters, or that soldier will die pretty quickly, even in a musou game. which leads into the second addition. Killed heroes remain dead. They're out of the game for good, and even those important to the story can't be deployed into missions anymore. You can disable this if it's too hardcore for your liking, but it's an ingenious addition to give the game that Fire Emblem feel. They tweaked the combat a bit more in an effort to make it more sophisticated. It certainly is more challenging than any of the other musou spin-offs. And now that I think about it, Persona 5 Strikers was pretty challenging as well. Maybe they're aiming more for the hardcore crowd going forward, which would be stupid. But yeah, the combat feels a bit more challenging. Enemy officers don't flinch when you hit them and your auto-aim doesn't glue you to them. It's actually quite easy to miss with an attack even with the auto-aim. And the range of your special attacks seems to have decreased from previous entries, though I'm not 100% sure about that, it just felt that way. In addition to your standard attacks and combo finishers, musou attacks and an awakening power-up state, standard fare for musou games, you now have equipable special attacks that drain your weapon durability, so you have a limited resource each mission for part of your moveset, and you need to use these attacks to level them up, so knowing when to use them and when to hold back is key. The guard break returned once again, but it received the most changes. Instead of the break gauge appearing after you dodged an enemy's special attack, it now appears during the wind-up. So you have to carefully weigh your chances as to how many times you are able to attack before the enemy's special attack hits you. You can also force the gauge to appear by performing critical blocks, or by throwing the enemy to the ground with a special attack, or by exploiting their weakness with a weapon advantage. I found the combat a bit finicky at times due to your character getting locked into animations while sliding past an enemy you had locked onto and thus fucking up a critical block or a special attack to trigger a guard break. And it annoyed me at times, but for the most part I welcomed the added challenge. Most of the differences to other musou games lie outside of combat. Again, Persona 5 Strikers already changed up the gameplay a lot, so this only shows me how willing Omega Force are to evolve their formula. The only thing that kinda stayed the same is the level up system, where you can spend money to level up a character up to the highest level you've reached with any other character. Instead of spending special resources on characters to unlock bonuses like extra charges for musou attacks or bonuses to attack or defense, you get access to the Fire Emblem class system and have to master a class to be granted access to higher tier classes. This gives you way more options to customize your units. You don't even have to assign a higher tier class to a unit. You can also master the lower level classes to get access to pretty much every class for every character. Add to that a lot of classes are able to equip multiple different weapons and that there is an option to assign troops to a unit, which might come into play later, then there are sheer endless possibilities for your loadout and troop composition. To more quickly master a class, you can have your units train together between missions, but you only have a few training points each chapter. The same goes for social activities. You can prepare and eat a meal with your comrades, or complete some chores to deepen their friendship, but only a few times per chapter. Though you can also buy presents to give to your allies or just talk to them in the camp as an alternate way to raise their friendship level, at least with the protagonist. Characters also grow closer by being assigned as adjutants during missions or by using support abilities on each other. A higher support level unlocks special cutscenes where the characters get to know and grow fond of each other, as well as rewards bonuses during combat, where units with a higher support level can combine their abilities to a better effect. Then you can upgrade different facilities in your camp with special materials. You can upgrade the training grounds to get more training points each chapter and have greater effects from training. You can upgrade the marketplace to get access to more and better wares, and so on. By completing tasks and challenges, you unlock renown that you can spend for stat boosting items. And you also get awards that you can trade in for even more items to level up your troops or special weapons and armor. This isn't a complex simulation, but another nice bit of customization and optimization in between missions. The missions themselves aren't selected from a list, but from a tactical map. Every chapter will have you make your way towards your main objective, but on the way you have smaller missions that you sometimes, but not always, have to complete to reach your main objective. By completing a mission, you conquer the surrounding area and get access to survey points, where you can find more resources, sometimes in exchange for other resources, or even special tactics for your main objective. And to use these special tactics, it seems you have to use strategy points you gain from completing side missions. I say it seems because I don't know. The trial version conveniently ends right before the main objective of your first chapter after the tutorial. So I don't know how this all works. But what I've seen from the game so far, and the trial version isn't short, was, at least gameplay wise, quite intriguing. The combat is typical musou fare, though a bit more challenging, but the iconic Fire Emblem editions give it a bit more depth, and the amount of customization made it hard for me to take a break from the trial version, and I'm totally looking forward to playing the full game. The story, though, well, while there is a lot of world building in Three Houses, it tended to be quite silly, and the presentation didn't help much, with really awkward cutscenes, and the good old characters not telling the whole truth but no one really questions it spiel. Many story threads led nowhere because each path through the game told and explained different aspects of the overall story, which is unfortunate in a long ass game where you have to replay a lot of the same missions 4 times. Well, this game addressed a few of my issues. The story seems still to be created around twists and misdirections, but at least the game tries to work in characters not explaining anything more naturally. But then there are huge leaps in the progression of the story. The time at the academy before the actual war in Three Houses lasted hours, where you slowly got to know all the students who would be soldiers in your army in the second half of the game. In Three Hopes, you get like 3 missions with accompanying cutscenes before a 2-year time skip. You barely get to know all the characters, but the game still throws in major reveals from Three Houses and treats it like a big thing, even though you haven't spent any time with those characters. Anyone who hasn't played Three Houses doesn't know their motivation and doesn't have any kind of connection with these characters. It's very superficial and it kinda threw me out of the experience. It seems to pick up the slack after the time skip, so I guess the game just wants to get all the preamble out of the way and get all the key players into position to tell its own story, but it still means that you kinda need to have played Three Houses to not be hopelessly lost in the beginning. I had my problems with the original story, and I don't think that this game will be a masterpiece in storytelling, but I do think that the 3 campaign structure is a better fit in this game than it was in the original, because I believe this game will be a lot shorter, and there might be a chance that the game even offers a better form of New Game Plus, where you don't need to begin from the start but just select a different path from the tactical map. We will see. I'm still very much looking forward to this game and I believe I will get a lot of fun out of it. And if you're at least a bit interested in this, then just try out the demo version to see if it's to your taste. It seems that you get to experience most of the mechanics, at least on a basic level. And of course, have a great day. That's it from Rady, and I hope to see you again on the next game.